Hello, everyone. So in my session today, I forgot to hit the record button. Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and re-record the beginning portion of my session so that you can still get that same information, but then a little bit ways in, about 10-ish minutes in, you'll start to see the flip to where our actual session started. So my name's Mary Kate, and I've been involved with junior composers for about 9-ish years now, both as a camper and a staff member. And we're going to be talking about prepared piano today. So some of the main concepts we'll be covering will include the importance of experimenting with various sounds, notating, how to notate those sounds, and the importance of the overall form of your piece. So we'll be talking about some various sound techniques that you can use and the importance of that form and notation when writing for prepared piano. So you're going to need a pencil, a piece of paper, so that you can take notes. There's also a handout on the COI Google Drive page that you can access that has an outline of everything that we'll be covering today. But then also, if you have an acoustic piano or an acoustic instrument of some sort, where at some point you're going to have time today to go ahead and experiment with some of the sounds and figure out what kind of sound you can come up with in about 3 minutes. Okay? So before we really get started into all of that stuff, we're going to start with a brief history and overview of prepared piano because it's super important and super cool. Okay? So the first person to really start to experiment with manipulating the strings of the piano was Henry Cowell, and that was in the 1900s. Even though Cowell came first, John.Cage, though, is really the one that we credit with being the first to develop the prepared piano as it's known today. So, have any of you heard of Henry Cowell or John.Cage? If you haven't, you're going to learn about them more today. Okay? So John.Cage, he was often frustrated with the harmonic limitations of the piano. The piano has 12 chromatic notes, right? And within those notes, we have whole steps, half steps. Well, John.Cage really likes the Eastern tonalities in Eastern music. So in Eastern tonalities and Eastern music, their scales are divided even smaller than half steps into quarter steps. And he was really frustrated because in Western music, like we know, you can't do that on the piano. And so that's what really started to spark his questions of, what can I really do with the piano? And then, even on top of that, he wanted to bring out the percussiveness of the piano to more fully imitate the sounds of their authentic instruments in Eastern music, to more fully display what he heard up here and in here and who he was emotionally in here, which is really cool, right? Because we all have our own sort of unique style of writing, and John.Cage's just is more percussive, it's more inspired by Eastern tonalities, which is really cool. Okay, so we're actually going to listen to a couple snippets of one of his pieces. It's his sonatas and interludes for prepared piano. And some questions I want you to keep in mind while you're listening are, what is your initial reaction to these sonatas? Do you like them? Do you dislike them? Or is it something that you're still going to have to process because it is so unique? What caught your attention about it? What kind of sounds did you hear? What kind of things really drew you in as a listener? What do you think Cage was trying to represent through those sounds? Do you think his sounds had purpose? Do you think he was effective in his use of sound effects? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you here. We'll see if this works. Hopefully it works. Okay. And I'm going to pull this over. And so you're going to see me dragging and dropping the browser a little bit as we just do short snippets. Okay, so the first one is that. Okay, so at this point in our session today, we had a discussion about what we heard and how it's so different from the music that we're used to, right? Because we're used to hearing the piano sound coming from the piano, right? This has a lot more unique tinny sounds and plucks and stuff like that. And so we talked about that and how it's different. And some of the students asked what was in the piano. And later on in the session, when we go through the score, you'll see it's mostly screws and bolts and rubber in there that make those sounds. But yeah, so we talked about that. So then at this point, we talked as well about how, because John Cage got all this started, more and more composers have continued to expand that realm of what prepared piano is. And so John Cage is still alive, but he really laid the groundwork. And so more and more people are starting to experiment with, well, what is music? What is it? What does it sound like? What is our definition of it? And so a lot of that has led to experimental music, avant-garde music, and which includes prepared piano music. And so I'm going to show another video here of Volker Bertelmann, who more recently composed a prepared piano piece. And you're going to see a lot more items on his piano, and you're going to see a little bit of a different approach than what John Cage took. And as you're listening, be thinking through some of those same questions and think about, how is this similar? How is it different from what John Cage did? Now we're recording. So what do you guys think of that one? How is that different from John Cage? What kind of stuff did you see in there? What do you think?
I liked it better just because it felt like it had like more of like control over it and just more of just an overall theme kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed a little bit like there was more of what we know music in there, with a lot more of the piano sound. Good.
I really like the kind of pizzicato sound to get. It's like a string instrument.
Oh, Mari, your microphone did something weird. We didn't hear anything you just said, or at least I didn't hear anything you just said.
Okay.
It's just kind of fuzzy.
Sorry.
The joys of online. If you want to figure that out, does anyone else have any thoughts they want to contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that like this was different from the other one. I mean, it was cool that we could see what was happening in it. It didn't seem like it didn't seem like the tuning of the piano was changed very much. In terms of like the piano itself, it sounded pretty normal, which is I think what Carter was observing. It was, it seemed like it was a lot like sort of almost normal piano, but with like a bunch of weird sound effects. I noticed that there was like the two things that he put in there. I don't know what those were, if those were like electromagnetic speakers or something. I really could not tell what they were doing, but they were making a bunch of weird sounds.
Yeah, I don't know what those were, but that was my favorite part.
Yeah, there was also a box of Tic Tacs.
Yeah, and so it's so cool to see all the things that he found, because it's really whatever you can find, see what kind of sound it makes, because you're never gonna know what kind of sounds you can get. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on now to talking about sound effects you can get. So something that I've found is when you're working with a grand piano, a lot of times when people are doing prepared piano, they're working with grand pianos because they're big, they have a lot more space. When you hold the sustain pedal down, the soundboard of the grand piano starts to act as like a resonator. So then when you put sounds into it, it resonates, it echoes. It's more than just like that single tone that we usually hear. So I'm going to show you a quick video of a trick that you can use when you're working with a grand piano and you're doing prepared piano stuff. As I'm sharing my screen and pulling that up, I want to remind you that prepared piano can be kind of hard on the instrument sometimes. So you really just want to make sure that you're taking care of the piano and you're just being careful and mindful of those strings. And just being careful with it. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Can you see my screen? Okay, so as you watch this video, that's me pushing a pedal down. Okay, that's the sustain pedal. As you push it down, this rod lifts in the back, and then you can actually stick a big eraser underneath that to hold the sustain pedal down. So then you can go work in the piano and you don't have to stand there and just hold that pedal down. You can move freely, you can go grab other stuff, and it's just like a quick little trick. And then some cool effects you can do on top of that is you can play the strings, you can pluck them, you can rub your finger along them, you can drop ping pong balls, bouncy balls in there. I love those kinds of sounds, they're really fun. You can run a glass bottle across the strings. You get a really cool metallic ringing sound. You can do drumming. You can put a paper in it. You can, and then, sorry, I'm getting a headache. So then, something else you can do is you can actually put some clothespins in the strings like we saw. And then if you put a ceramic plate and a dry erase board marker in it, you can get what sounds kind of like a drum set. So I'm going to play a quick clip for you.
Okay, sure.
This is what that sounds like.
1, 2, 3, 4.
you hear how that kind of sounds like a drum set? Isn't that cool? That's all inside a piano with a ceramic plate, a dry erase board marker, and then just clothespins. And then we were just playing the keys of the piano, and as the strings go up, as the hammer hits, the strings are vibrating, and then those vibrations are hitting the ceramic plate and all the other stuff. Okay, so then
was that just an audio file, or was there supposed to be a video with that?
that was just an audio file.
Oh, okay. Why did the actual sound of the notes themselves also sounded different? They sounded like way more like tinny, I guess.
Yeah, because they're not able to ring like they normally can. They were hitting up against a ceramic plate, which sounded more kind of like a cymbal than a piano string. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a video of a piece that I did when I was at camp a couple years ago. It's just like 15 seconds because I want to show you what happens when you play an acoustic instrument in. So I'm going to be playing my clarinet mouthpiece and barrel in, and you'll hear it echo over that resonating chamber. So the sustain pedal is down, and you're going to hear those echoes. And then if you watch Seth right here, you'll also see him rub against the piano, the inside of the piano. And what he's doing is he'll have a bouncy ball with like a little plastic serrated knife stuck into it, and he's just rubbing it along the side of the piano, and you'll get what sounds kind of like a whale. Okay. Yeah, so isn't that cool?
That's gotta be horror movie music.
Yeah, you should listen to The Banshee by Henry Cowell. Talk about horror music.
It was very very striking, very evocative.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna give you 3 minutes, and you're gonna go find your piano, and you're gonna find something in your house, and you're gonna experiment with your sound. Okay? So
What if we don't have an acoustic piano?
then Xander, find something that will make sound.
Okay.
Household objects, whatever you want to do, see what you can make, and then take your camera with you. Just stay muted, because then when we come back, we're going to see what everyone did. Okay?
I have a PC. I don't have like a laptop.
Oh, okay. Then just do your best and just be back in 3 minutes. Hi, Landon.
Hello.
So we're going around your house, and we have 3 minutes to find a household object to put in your piano and see what kind of sound effect you can get.
Oh, okay.
So do you have a laptop?
Yeah.
Take it with you, because we're going to see what everyone does.
Okay, well, I think I found something. I have an idea.
Okay.
I have this metal bucket.
That works. So if you want to mute yourself and mess around with it, see what kind of sounds you can make.
Okay, my piano isn't here, so I'm gonna have to go. My bucket didn't fit, so I'm gonna have to find something different.
Okay. We've got 1 minute left. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 1. Alrighty, who wants to go first? Alrighty, Tim.
Okay, so haven't found a way to completely hold it, but with my violin, I put a chess piece right at the very end of the fingerboard, and then when I strum with pizzicato, it gets this very interesting acoustic effect as the chess piece kind of makes a sound too. So yeah.
Cool. Can you strum it a couple more times?
Yeah. Let me make sure it's close. So yeah.
Cool. Who wants to go next?
Could you show it to us like on the camera of what the violin looks like? Like we can't. Oh, like that. Okay.
I need to find a way to hold it to the violin, but
Cool. Who wants to go next? Jonas, what did you do?
Well, I have an acoustic piano downstairs, but both of my parents are working, so I don't want to disturb them.
That's okay. Just think of something that you can maybe try out later. Okay. Mari, what'd you do?
I have a knitting needle that I can sort of like use to hit the strings in the piano instead of the. And it makes sort of a more tinny noise.
Oh, cool. So you used a knitting needle on the strings?
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. And you said it makes kind of a tinny sound? Cool. Alrighty, Xander, what'd you do?
Okay, so I have something interesting. This is a guitar that I had from when I was a small child. I never learned how to play guitar, but I still have this, and it. The neck is broken. Can you see that? Yeah. Look, see. So I can bend the neck, and it bends the pitch.
That is so cool! It's like a reverb on a keyboard.
Yeah.
Nice. Sam,
there's also a broken string which I can like use to I don't know, like hang on, I was doing something with it earlier, and I have to be careful not to let like the end of it cut me, but like dang it, I probably could do something with it. I'm having trouble with it right now though. But yeah, broken string. Yeah.
Cool, Xander. Nice job. All right, Sam.
It's also very out of tune.
I just like put sunglasses, my piano, so it makes a sound.
That's a cool sound. It kind of short. Yeah. Cool. Allie, what'd you do?
I fit this little clay piece in my piano, and hold on one sec. It's kind of loud here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear it?
Oh, there we go.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, it sounded kind of like a guitar almost.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we have to keep moving. Becca, Carter, or Landon, do you guys really want to share? Do you want to share?
No, mine wasn't so interesting. I tried using a piece of construction paper in the piano. It just made it sound. It sounded cool. It just made it sound more distant.
Same.
Okay. What about you, Becca?
I put like little clips and paper clips like in the strings, and then put it like inside almost the ukulele, and so when you strum it, it makes a rattle, like a rattling sound, like more than the string usually does.
Cool. And going back to the paper idea too, if you place a paper on strings and then you pluck the strings, like strum your finger across, you get this cool rattling sound because the paper is vibrating up against those strings. Okay, so now sound effects is like so fun to talk about because there's just so much you can do with it. But we're going to talk a little bit about notation now because we've got all these cool things. Well, how do you write it? And that's one of the most important parts, right? Is communicating to our performers. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a score. It's COI.Cage's Sonata and Interlude that we listened to earlier. But basically with prepared piano, there's no right way or wrong way to notate it. It's just the important thing is to make sure that you're over communicating with your performers what you want. So if we look here, Cage has this little note that kind of explains what's going on. And then you look here and he's got this nice chart laid out. So he's got the tone, so he knows what note he wants, okay? Then he's got the materials listed out with screws, rubber, bolts, furniture bolts. He screws and nuts, what size bolt. So this is all the stuff that was in that piece that we listened to. And then he labels strings left to right. So when you look inside a piano, if you look where all the strings are, you'll start to see that there are usually 3 strings per key. And so he labels them left to right. So then the screw is going to go between going left to right, string 1 and string 2. Then this rubber is wrapped around all 3 of them, okay? And then he's really clear about the distance from the damper in of how far you should measure in inches to get where exactly those materials should be. So he's really clear. He even gets to, it looks like 11/16. So he's really clear about what he wants, where everything should be, okay? Then, so that's how Cage does it. But we're going to look at what some other composers do as well, because there's so many different ways you can do it. So if you look here, I've got this example by Ives, and basically he's just got these cluster chords with asterisks. And then in the asterisks, he explains, oh, you're going to put a wooden strip this long and heavy enough to hold the keys down when striking. And that's what those are, okay? Then if we scroll through, we've got these other diagrams where basically there's a shortcut in the music, and then on another page at the beginning of the score, it explains what that actually means, what notes you're going to play. And there's all these different ways you can do it. See, this is one of Henry Cowell's pieces too. But if we scroll down a little bit, so that's one way to do it. But then some people do start coming up with symbols and different. So if you look here, here's Henry Cowell again. This is a little bit different than what we're used to. This almost looks more like a percussion part than a piano part because it's got a little bit more of a triangle shape. And then he explains, oh, what we want is a forearm cluster that is depressed silently with the left arm. So that's what that means. And then he explains it somewhere else in his score so that the performer sees that. They know when they see that, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And then we start getting down here. And this is Henry Cowell's The Banshee. And this is where it really starts to make the scores look a little funky. He's got all these labels here, which are basically shortcuts labeling to say, oh, you want to use your finger going from the lowest string to the highest string, or to the note given. Stuff like that. So it's like shortcuts so that the score isn't all messy with writing all over it. And then if you look here, some people draw little pictures in their music to help give the performers, like this says thunder roar sound. So this kind of shows, oh, they want a thunder roar sound. And then on top of that, some things you can do too is drawing diagrams. So if you see here, some people will draw pictures so that you can see, oh, here's this ribbon. We want it going over, under, over the strings. That's what it's gonna look like in the strings. Oh, there's the paper clip, the safety pin. This is how they should hang. This is how the screw and the bolt should be set up. Because humans are visual learners, and you can learn by reading, but having those diagrams helps give another avenue of clarification between the composer and the performer of what they want. Sorry, I'm talking really fast. I had a lot of coffee today. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so basically, there's no right way or wrong way to do it. It's whatever works for you. The important thing is just to over communicate with the performer so they know what's going on. Which if you think about it, it's like that with anything you're writing, right? You have to figure out how to make what's up here make sense to the performer who's gonna play it. We always have to over communicate. That's why we write dynamics. That's why we write tempo markings. That's why we write notes about the music so that the performer knows what we want to hear, okay? So I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. I know that's not a lot of time, but to come up with a quick way of how you would notate what sound you just came up with, okay? Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see 2 examples.
So with what I'm working on right now, I decided I think I'm gonna write a piece for the violin thing. So basically, I changed it a little bit so that there's basically it kind of makes the G and D string a little higher than normal. So that's what these these 2 things are. This guy and this guy. Yeah. And then I'm going to notate this guy, sliding him kind of up and down across the A and E strings like this.
Cool. That looks great, Sam. So yeah, so something like that is great. And then earlier in your score, like the first page of your score, you'll just want to draw diagrams and write little notes so the performer knows exactly what you want. Cool. All righty, let's go ahead and move on to form now. This is like our last big thing, and then we'll be wrapping it up. But as composers, we know that form is crucial to any piece, right? But I feel like it's even more important in pieces like this that are a little bit more experimental, because it's really easy to get carried away with all the cool different sound effects that you can make. But you want to make sure that all those sound effects relate somehow. And so following forms such as ABA, or, you know, the long list of them, can help tie everything together and make the piece go from just a collection of random sounds to sounds that have purpose. Okay. And as you're starting to develop a piece, as you're starting to write something like this, I think it's important that you start thinking about what kind of ambiance or feel you want your piece to be to get across to the audience. Because then it goes from, oh, well, these are all just a bunch of cool sounds I'm going to put in a piece, to giving your sounds purpose and knowing what each of those sounds, what their purpose is in that feel of your piece, and how they function, how they relate, how they convey what you're trying to convey to the audience. Okay. Sorry, I'm just making sure I got everything. And then on top of that, it helps streamline your whole writing process too, because rather than just having all these cool things, it's like, oh, well, now my piece has focus. I know what I'm working towards. Okay. And if you think about the examples we listened to earlier, you know that all the sounds that COI.Cage had a specific purpose. We might not understand it. It's all up for our own interpretation, but they all had a purpose. Okay. So really quick, someone tell me what KISS stands for. The KISS method.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. So when writing for prepared piano or anything like this, it's important to keep in mind less is more and keep it simple, stupid. This applies to anything you're writing, okay? As composers, it's so easy to get carried away by the endless possibilities. But you think about Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, it's all based on bum, 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 bum. One interval, 4 notes, 3 of those notes are repeated. And he got like a half hour of music from this much material, right? Okay, so keep it simple. Everything you need for any piece, not just this, any piece you're writing is all in this much of an idea, okay? And then my last little point, and then we'll wrap it up, is listen as much as you can. The more listening you can do, the more ideas for sounds you can get. But as you're listening, don't just listen passively. Ask yourself questions. Actively listen. Think, what was that? What was the purpose of that effect? How do these effects contribute to the overall presentation of the piece? Because then it's not just listening, it can spark creativity to go from, oh, that was a cool piece, to, oh, what was that sound? I like that sound. How did they do it? How can I imitate it? How can I develop it to what I want to hear in my music? Okay. And just some composers, we talked about Henry Cowell, COI.Cage, George Crumb. He doesn't do as much with prepared piano, but he does a lot of avant-garde music, which is more about ambiance, feel, kind of similar stuff. It's just with different things, different instruments. And if you look at his scores are so cool, and you can find a lot of inspiration just by looking at his scores. So yeah, we talked about form, notation, over communicating, keeping it simple, experimenting with sound, listening. We covered a lot of stuff in 45 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Or anything you want to talk about this? Alrighty, then I'll let you guys go. Thanks for coming in. It was great seeing you, and I hope that you have fun experimenting. If anyone, I'll put my email in the chat bar and my cell phone number. So if any of you have questions about this kind of stuff, or you just want more ideas or more resources, you can go ahead and text me or email me. But I also have that handout on the Google Drive that has everything we talked about, some links to more resources, some of the examples we looked at. But yeah. Alrighty, have a great rest of your day. Have fun writing.
Thank you, Mary Kate.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.